Для эффективной реализации призыва президента США необходим соответствующий приказ военно-политического руководства Украины своим воинским подразделениям сложить оружие и сдаться в плен.
This is my video update on this Saturday morning, March the 15th, coming to you from Athens, Greece. Let's talk about some news. And let's start things off with the post from US President Trump on Truth Social, where he asks the Russian president to spare the lives of the Ukraine soldiers who are trapped in Kursk. I believe the word that Trump uses is surrounded. Surrounded in Kursk. And that is the message that Trump put out there to the Russian president. The Russian president was holding a meeting of his security officials, and he said that that he has heard the plea from the President of the United States, and he sympathizes with the situation, but the solution, let me go in the shade, but the solution, according to the Russian president, is that the Kiev regime, the Ukraine military command, Syrsky, they have to tell the Ukraine soldiers who are trapped in Kursk to lay down their arms. That is the only solution to this situation. Here is what Trump posted on Truth Social. We had very good and productive discussions with President Vladimir Putin of Russia yesterday, and there is a very good chance that this horrible, bloody war can finally come to an end. But at this very moment, thousands of Ukrainian troops are completely surrounded by the Russian military and in a very bad and vulnerable position. That is in all caps. I have strongly requested to President Putin that their lives be spared. This would be a horrible massacre, one not seen since World War II. God bless them all. When Trump says we had very good and productive discussions, a lot of reports are suggesting that Trump actually called Putin, actually spoke with Putin. I don't think that's what Trump means when he says we. I think he's talking about Witkoff and his recent trip to Moscow and his meeting with the Russian president. But an interesting post from Trump. Wanting to save the Ukraine soldiers. That's what his post is asking of the Russian president, to spare their lives. But also Trump's way of bringing into focus the catastrophe in Kursk. Over the past 3+ years of covering the conflict in Ukraine, all of the defeats that the Ukraine military has suffered have been effectively covered up by the United States, by the collective West, by the collective West media. They've always found ways to cover up all of the defeats, and in that way, the citizens of the collective West never got a realistic and clear picture as to what was happening on the front lines. And now you have Trump posting on Truth Social, so the whole world can see it, that the Ukraine soldiers, a lot of Ukraine soldiers, are trapped in Kursk, surrounded and encircled in this cauldron. The Ukraine military, by the way, they put out a message and they said this is false. They said that Trump has fallen for Kremlin propaganda. And Syrsky, he said the other day that Ukraine is leaving Kursk in an orderly withdrawal. Right? It's an orderly withdrawal, according to Syrsky. He said the same thing about Avdiivka, and we know the truth about what happened in Avdiivka. It was chaos. It was chaos and a catastrophe for the Ukraine military, and there was no orderly withdrawal from Avdiivka, and the same situation, if not worse, is happening in Kursk. I've seen reports which claim anywhere between 4,000 to 7,000 Ukraine soldiers, and perhaps a lot of collective West mercenaries are currently trapped in Kursk. But I can't confirm these numbers. I'm just giving you the reports that I've read. One thing I can confirm is all the images that I've seen out of Kursk. Now that the Russians control Sudzha and most of Kursk, you're getting a lot of videos of all of the vehicles, the destroyed vehicles and weapons, and all of the NATO collective West military gear that the Russians have now captured, or that has been completely burned and destroyed. So you are starting to get a clearer picture as to the situation, or what was the situation in Sudzha, and you are getting photos and videos of some, actually quite a good amount of Ukraine soldiers who are indeed surrendering to Russia, to the Russian military. But Trump shining a light on the catastrophe that is Kursk, the catastrophe that is the Zelensky-Kursk debacle. Very embarrassing for Zelensky, because the collective West has been covering up for him. The defeat in Bakhmut, the collective West covered it up. The defeat in Avdiivka, the collective West covered it up. The great 2023 summer offensive that offended me and offended you and offended everybody, the collective West, they covered it up. They've been covering up for the Green Goblin a whole lot. And by covering up for the Green Goblin, they've managed to keep the war going, and they've managed to fool and trick a lot of people into actually believing that Ukraine has a possibility to win the war. I remember the reports from Bakhmut and Avdiivka. The reports were that this was a strategic withdrawal. Remember those articles talking about Bakhmut and Avdiivka, or that Bakhmut and Avdiivka, they have no real strategic importance. They're not really important. They never said that the 2023 summer offensive, that it was a Russian victory. They would never say that it was Russia that defeated Ukraine in the 2023 Ukraine summer offensive. No, it was just the Ukraine military just suffering a setback in the 2023 offensive. They've always come up with excuses for the Zelensky regime. Trump is not letting them make any excuses anymore, even though Zelensky put out a message yesterday. And we've seen a lot of excuses about Kursk. A lot of excuses. North Koreans in Kursk, right? Trading Kursk for Russian territory, for Russian-controlled territory in future negotiations. A lot of excuses coming from the Zelensky regime about Kursk. But yesterday he said our operation in Kursk was a success. That's what the Green Goblin said. Our operation in Kursk, a success. He went on to say that the purpose of Kursk was to divert Russian forces away from, I believe he said, Pokrovsk and Kharkov, and the Ukraine military successfully managed to remain in Kursk and to distract Russian forces from other areas on the front lines, which is to divert Russian forces from other areas on the front line, which is completely false. That's not what happened, but he's saying it was a success. He said that the front lines across Donbass have stabilized, which is also a lie. They have not stabilized at all. Russia continues to advance across the entire front line in Donbass. So that was the excuse that Zelensky came up with. A great success in Kursk. Mission accomplished, according to the Green Goblin, but Trump says otherwise. So So that was what Putin said. He sympathizes, but there's really nothing that he can do if they don't lay down their arms. Russia's been burned by letting Ukraine military leave areas that have been surrounded in this conflict in the past. Mariupol is what I'm thinking of, where the Russian military let the Ukraine forces leave Mariupol. A lot of the Ukraine forces that were surrounded, they left Mariupol. And of course, who can forget the commanders in the Azovstal, right? Those commanders who were trapped, and eventually Russia worked out a deal, and they worked out a deal with Erdogan, or Erdogan mediated the deal where he said, look, let all of these commanders leave Mariupol, and I will make sure that they remain in Turkey. That was the promise that Erdogan made to Putin. And what happened? A year later, Erdogan let them all go. All of these commanders, a lot of them NAZI guys, Erdogan let them all go. So Russia got burned on that one. So I don't think they're going to get burned this time around. Lay down your arms. Putin said that the soldiers will be treated according to Geneva Conventions, international law, and Russian law. So he said they will be treated according to the law. But they have to lay down their arms, and that way they will survive. So Mark Rutte, he was giving an interview, the CEO of NATO, he was giving an interview to Bloomberg TV. And Mark Rutte said that there is no NATO for Ukraine. It is over. The whole Ukraine into NATO, it's done. Ukraine will not get into NATO. That is what the CEO said.
Would you be willing to do business again with Russia after this? Because we are hearing reports of things like maybe gas deals come back into play.
Well, I mean, I'm not there because, first of all, you have to maintain the pressure on the Russians to make sure that they do whatever is necessary. That's why we have the sanctions, and let's not be naive about the Russians. But longer term, Russia is there. I mean, Russia will not go away. And I've had many dealings with President Putin till 2014. In my first 4 years as Prime Minister, we had many negotiations. And I think it is normal if the war would have stopped for Europe to somehow, step by step, and also for the US, step by step, to restore normal relations with the Russians. But we are absolutely not there yet. We have to maintain the pressure on them to make sure that they are willing to engage seriously in talks with the American administration and, of course, also with the Ukrainians.
He said that Russia is here, and we need to engage with Russia in the future. He talked about increasing sanctions and stuff like that. But he said, look, Russia is here, they exist, and we're going to need to deal with Russia in the future. And as far as Ukraine and NATO, it's over. It is over. Quite an admission from Rutte. The reporter also talked about renewal of gas deals as well. She asked Rutte, look, it looks like we're getting a rapprochement with Russia and the United States. People are talking about renewing gas deals. What's up? NATO CEO. And Rutte said, yeah, you know, Russia's a reality. They exist. We're going to have to deal with them. In the long term, we're going to have to deal with them. Sanctions, well, we'll continue to put sanctions pressure. But there's going to be no Ukraine in NATO. That's off the table. The CEO of NATO went to see his best customer, his number one client, which is the United States. And his number one client said, look, I'm trying to get some sort of a deal with Russia. We're negotiating a deal with Russia. And the number one point for Russia is that Ukraine does not get into NATO. So we need you to make this statement. And CEO Rutte said, okay, I will make the statement that Ukraine is not going to be getting into NATO. I will be on record as saying this. Interesting, huh? Rutte Rutte. New NATO Secretary General Mark Rutte says Ukraine's path to NATO is irreversible. That is what he said a while back. It's irreversible. That's what NATO said. That's what NATO CEO Rutte said. Irreversible. Now, Ukraine's accession into NATO is no longer under consideration. NATO Secretary General Mark Rutte. From irreversible to it's no longer under consideration. Irreversible means it's never going to reverse. It's never going to reverse. It's irreversible, never reversing. Now it's off the table. Because my number one client, my number one customer, said that we're going to stop doing business with you if you don't make this statement. So Rutte made the statement. By the way, Medvedev, he commented on the Ukraine soldiers that are trapped in Kursk and on Trump's post on Truth Social. And Medvedev, he said that the Kiev regime still has a chance to save its people. The next few hours will show what they choose. You know, Zelensky, going back to the soldiers that are trapped in Kursk, it's going to be so difficult for Zelensky to tell them to lay down their arms. It's going to be difficult for Syrskyi to tell them to lay down their arms. They can't do it. Not once in this conflict have they been able to give the order for the troops to retreat. They're just incapable of telling them to retreat or to surrender. They do the opposite, actually. They tell them to continue to fight, knowing that they're encircled and that they're going to be annihilated. Whether it was Bakhmut or Avdiivka or anywhere else, they've never been able to tell their soldiers, put down your weapons and surrender to save your lives. So Medvedev, he knows this. Medvedev knows this, and he knows that it's going to be very difficult for Zelensky and for Syrskyi to tell them to surrender to the Russian military. And this is going to expose Zelensky further for what he really is. So anyway, that was Rutte taking NATO for Ukraine off the table. It's irreversible, not so irreversible. So there's a G7 foreign ministers meeting in, I believe it's in Canada, right? Carney is now the official Prime Minister of Canada. I believe he was sworn in the other day. Mark Carney, the former head of the Bank of England, head of the Bank of Canada, but also head of the Bank of England, is now the Prime Minister of Canada. That's not gonna work out well, is it? I remember the interview with Klaus Schwab. I don't know when he gave this interview. This was like many years ago. And Klaus Schwab was at some event and he was being interviewed, and he was talking about how the WEF, he was proud of it, how the WEF controls half of the parliament in Canada. And this was the model going forward. Canada, for Klaus Schwab, was the model of success. And he was telling the interviewer, we control half of the parliament. The politicians are WEF young leaders or former leaders for the WEF school or whatever the program is that they have. He wasn't wrong, was he? He was not wrong. So anyway, going back to the ministers meeting in Canada, they wanted to place sanctions on Russia, the G7, but Rubio, he blocked it. He said, no, we're not going to ramp up sanctions or place more sanctions on Russia. Not yet. Not now, because we're negotiating with Russia, and that's not going to help us out in our negotiations. But then you had the G7 ministers, as well as leaders of the collective West of Europe. They came out with statements warning Russia, actually giving Russia an ultimatum. That's right. Lammy issued an ultimatum to Russia. Who else? Macron. Pretty much all of the collective West, most of the collective West leaders, foreign ministers, presidents, prime ministers, they all came out and They told Russia that it better accept the 30-day ceasefire or else. Accept it or else. What did Lammy say, the foreign secretary of the UK? Keir Starmer's right-hand man, David Lammy. Let's see, the British diplomat made this statement on the sidelines of the G7 in Canada. British Foreign Secretary David Lammy demands Russia accepts ceasefire in Ukraine without any conditions, writes the Daily Mail. Ukraine has stated its position. Now Russia must accept it. Wow. Man, Russia better accept it. If Lammy is putting out this message, this ultimatum, I don't think Putin has a choice, does he? He doesn't have a choice. If Lammy says it, if Lammy's warning you, you better take that warning seriously. Not only Lammy, Macron. Macron also posted the same message. It's almost as if they're working off of a script, huh? Russia must accept the US and Ukraine's offer of a 30-day ceasefire. Russian aggression in Ukraine must end. Abuses must stop, as must the delays in statements. That is what Macron said. So what was Medvedev's response to all of this? Oh boy, are you guys ready for Medvedev's response? This is not me, YouTube algorithms. This is, don't ban this channel. This is Medvedev. This is Medvedev's response to these statements from the collective West leaders, specifically from the UK and from Lammy. This is what Medvedev posted on X. UK updates Trump. Russia should accept the proposal for a ceasefire in Ukraine without any conditions, says the British Foreign Secretary. Britain and its minister can shove their idea back up their S-hole it came from, diplomatically speaking. Bro, Medvedev, man. Medvedev is everything that Putin would like to tell the leaders of the collective West, but Putin cannot do it, right? Because of his position and the fact that he's a diplomat and a gentleman. Medvedev is also, when he wants to be, he's a diplomat and a gentleman, but he's been given free reign to post as he wishes on social media. And my God, whoa, that was something, huh? That was his response to Lammy. Yeah, I don't think Lammy's going to like that response, is he? So that's the warning. That's the ultimatum. That's Medvedev. Let's talk about Germany. Let's talk about BlackRock Merz. BlackRock Merz is saying Germany is back, baby. Germany's back, says BlackRock Merz. Breaking, German Chancellor-elect Merz says the CDU, SPD, and the Greens have struck a deal to dismantle the constitutional debt brake on military spending. Hundreds of billions of euro will go to rearmament and infrastructure. Merz says peace in Europe will be protected. Germany is back. Oh boy. Yeah, no big surprise that the Greens would vote for more military spending. Big surprise. The warmonger Greens, the neocon Greens in Germany, are voting for more military spending. I'm shocked, man. I'm absolutely shocked. But Merz, my God, BlackRock, your German Chancellor-elect Merz. Germany is back. Germany is going to protect Europe. Peace in Europe will be protected by Germany. Oh my God. Oh my God. Upside down world, everybody. Upside down world. Yeah, so they're going to spend like crazy on military stuff. They are going to spend. and borrow with the currency that is not theirs, not their currency. They're going to use the euro. And they're going to spend. No more debt break. It's not going to end up well for Germany, is it? This is not going to turn out well, and it's going to be very expensive because you're not getting any of that cheap Russian gas. We'll see how all of this turns out. It looks like Europe has nothing to worry about because Germany is going to protect Europe. Yep, Germany's back, baby. Oh my God, God help us. God help us. So the EU is aiming to revive military industry, according to Politico. Brussels has been pursuing a path of militarization, citing the existential threat from Russia. So this is a white paper that Politico managed to get its hands on, somehow managed to get its hands on this white paper. I don't know how that happened, but excellent reporting from Politico, excellent journalism from USAID Politico. And this white paper is basically talking about what Germany is up to, which is spending on the military because of Russia. Military spending has to be ramped up in order to prepare for an eventual smash with Russia. And the interesting part about this white paper, the planning that is now taking place, because we know that when the EU starts planning things, well, it's going to be a great success, right? Because the EU is so good at planning these types of things. They're very good at creating these funds and planning out all of these big projects, like the KUF, like Ursula's planning for the KUF and creating that big KUF slush fund. But the person behind all of this white paper, is none other than stunning and brave Kaja Kallas. Nothing to worry about, Europe. Kaja Kallas is planning this big military expansion. The white paper, one of the authors, which is the EU's top diplomat, Kaja Kallas, outlines measures to rebuild European defense by increasing military spending, prioritizing the procurement of defense items within the EU, and streamlining financing for arms production. Kallas, a vocal critic of Moscow, has long advocated for a more aggressive military posture towards Russia. Why are the Europeans letting this woman lead the charge towards a bigger military expansion, military industry? Why? Why is she in charge of anything? How did this happen? Kaja Kallas from Estonia. She is militarizing Europe, or at least that's her wish, her plan. Yeah, it's not going to happen. It's not going to happen. Not with Kaja Kallas in charge. Not with the deindustrialization of Europe, which is in full effect, not going to be reversed. The deindustrialization is a reality, and I just don't see this thing taking off. Don't see it happening. What I do see happening is a lot of money being taken from citizens in Europe, being put into these big defense funds, and then the money just kind of disappearing and not being talked about anymore. That's what I see happening. And we do have some reports which claim that Europe is coming up with schemes, ideas as to how to tap into the trillions and trillions in savings of European citizens, European businesses and citizens, which are just sitting there being saved. And Europe would like to tap into those savings so that they can be used for military spending. Wealth transfer, huh? A wealth transfer, if you want to call it that. A transfer to the MIC. That's what's being planned. Anyway, that's Kaja Kallas, stunning and brave. Let's do some clown worlds. Wrap this video up. Can we say that Kellogg has been Zelensky cursed? Keith Kellogg. The reports are that Keith Kellogg has not only been sidelined from the negotiations with Russia, but he's been just completely removed, just gone. He's going to have no say in any of these negotiations with Russia, no presence at all, because according to the reports, the Russians did not want Kellogg involved in anything because he's too pro-Ukrainian, and they're right. He is absolutely super duper, uber pro-Ukrainian, and so the Russians said, we don't want this guy. We don't want this guy in any of the negotiations. We don't want this guy involved in anything. And it looks like Kellogg has been Zelensky cursed. In a way, he's been Zelensky cursed. So he's out of the picture now, Keith Kellogg. We have Lukashenko gave an interview to Russian media, Rossiya 1, I believe. And he was asked about his relationship with the Green Goblin, and Lukashenko said that he was like a son, but he turned out to be a scumbag. Lukashenko, man. Wow. He was like a son, but yeah, turned out to be not so much like a son. Anyway, that's Lukashenko. And here is an article from the Telegraph, 2 articles from the Telegraph. The author is Richard Kemp, so the same author posted this about Kursk when it first got started. Ukraine has just humiliated Putin. Long may it last. That was what he posted about Kursk when the operation was launched. Poor Putin, humiliated by the Green Goblin in Kursk. And then the other day, Richard Kemp, the same author, posted, the Kursk offensive may prove to have been Ukraine's most costly mistake. What happened, Mr. Kemp, from the Telegraph? What happened? They cannot even hide it. Even Kursk is so bad, it is so bad that not even the UK media can cover up for the Kursk catastrophe. Even the Telegraph has to admit that this is a huge debacle. Ukraine's biggest mistake, most costly mistake, according to the Telegraph. Anyway, that's the video, theduran.locals.com. We are on Rumble, Odyssey, BitChute, Telegram, Rockfin, and X. Go to the Duran shop, pick up some merch, like what I'm wearing in this video update. The link is in the description box down below. Take care.